Erev Tov, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Mark Baker, President and CEO of Combined Jewish Philanthropies, and I have the privilege of sharing a few reflections and words of gratitude to frame what I know is going to be a powerful program this evening. First, let me thank my colleagues at CJP and Tova Katz for all your work behind the scenes to bring us together tonight. Thank you to all of the sponsoring synagogues, Young Israel of Brookline, Adams Street Synagogue, Congregation Beth El Ateret Yisrael, Congregation Kadima Toras Moshe, Congregation Sharei Tefillah, Maimonides Kehila, the Sephardic Congregation of Newton, and Young Israel of Sharon. Especially right now, it is so important that we find ways to come together in joy and in sadness, in celebration and in commemoration. And I'm so grateful to our rabbinic leadership and to the many people throughout our communities who are stepping up and leading in so many ways. Together, you are working to find innovative ways to ensure that Torah, Tefillah, and the power of Kehillah continue despite our distance. The ways our communities are adapting during this crisis is thanks to the foundations we built before the crisis. The sacred hard work of being Osek B'Tzorchei HaTzibur, of creating community day in and day out. Thank you. And of course, we are honored and humbled to have Branya Brandman with us tonight. Thank you, Branya, for choosing to be here and for sharing your story with us. At the conclusion of my remarks, there will be a 5-minute slideshow that contains pictures from the Shoah, including photos of the ghettos and the liberation of the camps. And we just want to let you know this because many of you are at home with children around, and we want to alert you so you can position your computer screens appropriately. Tonight, we join with Jewish communities around the world to commemorate Yom HaShoah by honoring the memories of those we lost and recalling this horrific chapter of our Jewish and human history. We also tell the stories of those who survived, like Branya Brandman, to remind ourselves that in the face of anyone or anything that tries to destroy us, the miraculous resiliency of the human spirit and the Jewish people always overcome. The day chosen by the State of Israel to commemorate the horrors of the Holocaust was named Yom HaShoah VeHaGvura, a day of remembrance of the Holocaust and the heroism, the strength. And it was tied to the date of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, because Jewish resistance and Jewish hope, Hatikva, go hand in hand with the darkest times in Jewish history. I recently read Rabbi Moshe Lichtenstein's 2008 book about Moses. And in it, he describes the elders who Moshe gathered around him to the tent of meeting in the wilderness with the hope that they would help lead the people through this challenging stage of their journey. And Rabbi Lichtenstein's description struck me as particularly poignant when I thought about this evening. Here's what he said about the elders. The elders belong to the generation of leaders and fighters who were involved in the struggle against Pharaoh. Their inner nature and the formative experiences of their character were shaped by the enslavement in Egypt, the longing for freedom, and the struggle to achieve it. All their lives, they've been focused on challenge and confrontation with no thought for their personal comfort or ease. Their strength and determination were forged in the blast furnace from Egypt, where their oppressors sought to make them forget the land of their forefathers and their national heritage by enslaving them. But against the odds, they stood up proudly as Jews, holding on to the memory of Joseph's promise that God will surely remember you. Survivors like Branya have been and continue to be the elders of the Jewish people, teaching us through their stories and their lives about strength, determination, and resilience. We have so much to learn from them always, and perhaps especially right now. It is a sacred responsibility to remember the darkness of the Shoah and to ensure that we will never let the lights of the 6 million lost be extinguished. And as the generation who experienced and survived this horrific history grows older, I believe it is a mitzvah, an obligation incumbent on all of us to hear their firsthand accounts whenever we possibly can. So especially this year, on this 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, let us bear witness to their resiliency and their indomitable spirit. We will remember, and we will proudly carry the torch of their stories into the future for generations to come. Thank you.
Eufen Pripečik brennt der Feuerl und mir Stub ist heiß. Und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem Aleph Beis. Und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem Aleph Beis.
לשאול ההווה, כילד ההולך לו לאיבוד, כפות ידיים מושטות מבקשות את העזרה, להמשיך איתך את המסע. ובצדדים הפרחים כאילו איבדו את זהותם, מחפשים עוד קרן אור שתעזור, עוד לגימה קטנה של מים ממעייני החוכמה, תביא להם את התקווה. הרים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים במרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא.
Tonight, we have the honor of hearing survivor testimony from Mrs. Branya Brandman, an Auschwitz survivor and dear friend of mine. Many of us would never have had the opportunity to hear Branya's testimony, as she lives in New York, but such is the silver lining of our new Zoom reality, and we're grateful for that. Branya was born in Jaworzno, Poland in 1931. After the war, Branya immigrated to the United States, where she married and worked as a teacher in the New York City public school system. Branya has 2 great-grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. The first time she returned to Auschwitz was in 2018 with an IDF delegation. Branya is also the co-author of her wartime memoir designed for young readers entitled The Girl Who Survived, A True Story of the Holocaust. Branya has volunteered as a gallery educator at New York's Museum of Jewish Heritage for 20 years and shares her testimony with hundreds of groups. Her pre-COVID-19 schedule was chock full of speaking engagements for a diverse array of audiences, ranging from New York City public school students and teachers to district judges, West Point cadets, and HBO producers. Branya's boundless energy is matched only by her determination to share her story with as many people as possible, a duty she feels beholden to, having kept silent for 50 years after the war. For me and countless others who have heard her story, she is a beacon of hope, strength, and inspiration. Branya, we are so honored that you have chosen to spend this evening with us. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Tova, I love you too. I am lucky to have you for a friend. I count my blessings. But I want to tell you that being involved and being the age I am, I somehow feel it much stronger. It could be possible that because I have more time, or it could be possible that old age, but I am reliving it much stronger. And I really hope I can get through to my audience, but I don't know because I'm exceptionally emotional at the moment. So let me start. How do you conceive of 6 million murdered? Is it possible to have your mind wrap around this? 6 million deliberately murdered. 1.5 million children murdered. Innocent children. Only God knows what we have lost. We could have lost another Einstein, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that our thousands of year culture, we exist for 3,500 years, has been wiped out. our people have been wiped out deliberately. So I would like to really start with introducing my family very briefly, so you know who we are talking about. So, Tova, would you be good enough to show the pictures, starting with my father? So I'm waiting for, okay, this is my father. And briefly, he was a genius. He was a descendant of the Ramah, a codifier of Jewish law. And he was a brilliant Talmud Chacham. In addition, he was extraordinarily handy. He could make or fix anything. But father was a little bit, he was formal. He was a little distant, and sometimes I wondered if he cared enough. But as time went on, I understood he cared enough. Okay, my mother, please. Can I have a picture? Okay, this is my mother. Mother was very warm, very nurturing. This is a picture from before she was married, because she had her head covered. She was extraordinarily from. She was very wise. She prided herself on being able to quote famous German poets. And she had a hobby, which we girls inherited, and that was ballroom dancing. My mother was the star at any wedding. Okay, my mother. This is another picture of mother. Mother and a cousin who lived in Holland. They had only one child and gave the child to Christians for safekeeping. And the child was brainwashed. She refused to return to her parents. She had a lifelong issue of identity. Thanks. This is my father's wedding invitation. Father was raised in Vienna, and this is his invitation. We don't have my mother's. So it's very exciting to have this record. Okay. This is my older sister. Her name is Mila. She was 8 years older than I was. And Mila was my idol. I thought that Hashem, that God, created one of a kind in the world. That she was the most beautiful, the smartest, the saintly, very sophisticated, very well-read, a romantic, and she had to have a heart of gold to tolerate me, because I was a pain in the neck. I was shadowing her wherever she went. So that was Mila. Another picture of Mila. And she worried, I think we are too fast. She worried about her waistline, just like any teenager. Okay. And that's Mila again. And father was considered very upwardly, well, liberal, that he allowed his daughter to ride a bicycle. This was on vacation. She was getting water from the well. And this is a picture, we are a little bit too fast. It's a picture of Mila and her cousin, and another picture when Mila was younger with her Beis Yankov friends. Okay, this is Mendek. Mendek was dyslexic. When he was a child, we didn't know anything about dyslexia, and he somehow lived in his own world. He failed both public school, which was compulsory and very anti-Semitic, and he failed yeshiva. And he was a very unhappy child, very self-sufficient, never complained, took care of his own things. Mendek is the only one who survived besides me. Mendek today is famous. He's listed in the Smithsonian as a major achiever in America. He invented many machines, and there's a lot more to his credit. That's Mendek. That's Tulek. Tulek was a terrorist. He used to beat me up. He used to take away my daily allowance. He cut school. He cut Cheder. He came home to sleep after father was asleep. He was always in trouble. But his friends and cousins loved him. He was his own man. And secretly, I liked him. Okay, that was Tulek. That was me. Well, all I can say about me is that I was very curious, also very stubborn like a mule. Okay, I shouldn't be divulging such secrets. That's Mila. I'm in the center, and next to me is Rutka. We shared a bed, but she was totally different. She was a very playful child, very daring. And she went to sleep with the roosters. I went to sleep. I was the one to shut the lights. She got up with the roosters. Okay, that was Rutka. And that was baby father's favorite. And my cousin, who lives in Vienna, tells me that every time a new baby was born, my father would write him, "This is the prettiest or the smartest and the handsomest," all of them. So he was able to love us in his own way without divulging it to us. So that is the end of my family. Okay, we will now put on the star, the Jewish star, on the screen. We will talk about it in the course of time. Okay, so the star is material which had to be sewn on every garment, starting with the age of 6. Judah means Jew, and if you walked out without it, you were shot. Okay, so we are back to the beginning, which is World War II. World War II started in 1939. My mother, my family, because we lived 18 kilometers from Auschwitz, which is southwest Poland, also very close to the German border. And because we lived so close to the German border, we knew that Germany is going to attack. And we feared that we would get the brunt of it. So we fled to my uncle's town called Mielec. The first thing in the middle of the night, when the Germans marched in to Mielec, they burned the synagogue, full packed with Jewish men. They were burned alive. Then they went to the slaughterhouse and butchered Jews and hung them on meat hooks. I was 8 years old at the time. We eventually returned to Jablonec. I will have to make it brief because I am limited in time, even though you'll have to sit through it for a long time. I will not tell you my father's story, but I will tell you that the town was plastered with posters telling us, warning us of the things. So we were being robbed of our valuables. We were thrown out of school. We were identified by wearing the Jewish star on every garment. We were starved. We lived on ration cards. We basically survived on potatoes. Our mail was censored. You know, I could go on and on. So by the time I was 9, I became a smuggler to supplement our food. An aunt of mine owned a materials store, and she squirreled away some material before it was confiscated. And I took that material to a Christian grocery who only wanted to deal with me. They thought I was the only one reliable, and exchanged it for things like flour and butter and milk and eggs, which we sold on the black market, supplementing our income, which was almost nil, even though Mendel was forced to work in the coal mines, but he did not get any pay. Okay. Every time I went on my mission, I was sure I would not return home. I was sure that sooner or later, I would be caught and shot. But we needed to eat. But by the time daily life was fearful, they would arrive with trucks, with machine guns. They ordered us to assemble in a certain place. They selected some, the rest went home, and the ones selected were never heard from again. By the time I was 11, they ordered all of us to assemble in the schoolyard. My father sensed that this was final. It was 1942. He told Mila and my 2 baby sisters to hide. We had a built-in sukkah with a built-in couch, and the couch had wooden panels on the bottom, and they hid before the wooden panels. All of us had hiding places. And the rest of the family assembled in the schoolyard. I did forget to tell you that it was my sister who was required to report to be sent to slave labor camp, and Mendel volunteered to go in her place. As the sun was burning us all to a crisp, as we stood for hours in the schoolyard, my mother whispered to me to run. I wonder how she could have thought of that. If I were to run, there would be a volley of bullets coming in my direction. I had been an experienced what do you call it? It escapes me at the moment, the word. It's appropriate for my age. Okay, so I knew that if I shouldn't run. So I slowly walked out of the schoolyard, very reassuredly. I must have stunned them, the soldiers, the guards, to see someone being so reassured and walk so slowly out. Nobody stopped. And so I was out. That's the last time I saw my father and mother. That's the last time I saw Tulek. Tulek was 13 years old that thing in his eye that vanished. He was so sad. He knew that he was going to be murdered the same day. I will never forget the way Tulip looked. When I was out, I feared that a neighbor, a Pole, would denounce me. He did see my store, and he would denounce me for a pound of sugar. Obviously I'm here. Obviously I was not denounced. And I went to a farmer that we knew. And I asked them to allow me till the night. And while I was there, I was wondering, should I ask them to harbor me? There were two sick, old people. The man was blind. They had no children. And they were very poor. And they desperately needed help. But then I realized if I stayed with them, I could not remain a Jew. I was so proud of our Jewish heritage. I decided not to ask. At night, I went to my sister's hiding place, and together we fled to the next town called Sosnowiec, followed by barking dogs who we feared would wake up their owners, and they will denounce us. In Sosnowiec, we were illegal. We belonged in Auschwitz. My parents were murdered, and my brother, from what we know now, were murdered in Auschwitz. I wonder, they must have been happy that I got away. I met them again when I visited Auschwitz with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, recently. I met them, at least I thought I met them, and the gas chambers were demolished. But there was one home in Auschwitz which was used as an initial gas chamber. And to my mind, I had a conversation with me, and they embraced me unconditionally. And that was an extreme experience, but I'm going out of the way. So we arrived in Auschwitz. We were illegal. We had to sleep outdoors. Eventually, there was a law, which we learned about, that if you were under 12, you could become legalized, and I was 11. I became the head of the household. We received lodging and ration cards. Mila had to be in hiding. I continued being a smuggler, this time of live chickens, because they were the most profitable ones. A year later, we ended up in Sosnowiec, eventually created a ghetto. If it was bad in Sosnowiec, it was a lot worse in the ghetto. At the end, which was a year, we were hiding in a camouflage basement. We knew that there was going to be a raid, and we sensed that it was the final raid. We were hiding together with a neighbor, and the neighbor had a baby. And as we heard the Germans overhead, the baby started crying. What was the mother to do? We were all at risk. she found herself suffocating her baby. Unfortunately, they found us anyway. They took us to Auschwitz. So it was my two baby sisters, my older sister, and I arrived on a transport of 9,000 from the Soviets to Auschwitz. We arrived in Auschwitz. The train doors were open. We were told to leave everything behind. Then the men were separated from the women, and the children went with their mothers. And we were told, we were yelled at, Schnell, 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 as they kept beating us. Schnell means fast. You were totally disoriented. And then we had to pass Dr. Mengele, who stood there with white gloves on. And all he did was move his finger. He pointed the three of us to the left. He pointed Mila to the right. My mind worked instantly. Without thinking, I just acted. I realized I was going to be murdered. I realized that if Mila was picked to go to a different line, that she might be living. So in an instant, I ran to Mila's line. My two baby sisters went alone to the gas chamber. In Auschwitz, online, the guard spotted me, and he took his gun and rammed it over my head, screaming, "What's a child doing here?" However, he let me pass by, so I went with Mila to continue to Auschwitz, the labor camp. Then we went to the defumigation place. We were made to strip naked. And then our hair was shaved, not cut, by men. And then we were tattooed. So I don't know whether you can see the number on my arm. My number was 52,643. I also actually have it on screen. That may be a little too complicated to show. And then I became a subhuman, or less than subhuman. I no longer had a name. I was referred to by the number on my arm. And then we were given one tattered dress, no underwear, one pair of woolen clogs, no socks, and one final possession, a tin bowl suspended by our waistline with a string. These were the sole possessions I had for the past 2 years. And then we were assigned to a barrack. And a barrack, Birkenau, was an army camp at one point. It was built on a swamp. Our wooden clogs were forever stuck in that swamp. Our feet became swollen and full of pus and stuck in the mud. 10 of us in the bunker which was built for horses initially, were given one blanket. Our feet met somebody's face. If one turned, all of us had to turn. The size allotted us was the size of a coffin. Now, I can't tell you what time we were woken up. We were woken, some say at 4:30, some say 5. We had to be outside within minutes to be on sail appel, which was roll call. And while we were standing on roll call, they would come around and select for the gas chamber, the most feeble ones. And the worst nightmare was going, and when selected, if there wasn't enough for it to fill a gas chamber, we would be placed in block 25, where they no longer closed you or fed you. They were eaten up by not mice, but rats. And the screams from there went to high heavens. We were standing anywhere from an hour to a few hours, because Auschwitz had, some say the numbers differ, 45 camps around Auschwitz or affiliated with Auschwitz. And if there was one missing in the counting, all of us had to stand for hours. Now remember how we were close, and the weather was unbearable. Breakfast was a bowl of green water. I believe it was spiked. After breakfast, we were escorted to work, and work was meant to kill. If you drank the water in Auschwitz, you came down with dysentery. An outhouse was for 700 or 800 people, and you always felt like you were going to fall in, and we were watched inside by a guard with a pointed gun. And if you couldn't wait long enough for you to be your turn, and you had diarrhea, all of that went into the trash. Now, food for the day was one slice of bread made out of sawdust and a bowl of watery soup. And you did not want to know what was swimming in this soup, and how you prayed that you get it from the middle of the barrel, not from the top, which was just water. The hunger, can anyone imagine that kind of hunger for 2 years? We were covered by lice, and lice breed disease. And Mila came down with typhus and had to be removed. She could no longer work, and she could no longer stand on roll call, and she had to be removed to the Revere, and the Revere was barracks, there's barracks reserved for the sick. And my dilemma, should I go with Mila? Knowing that going with Mila, you may never come back. And I decided to go with Mila. We were sleeping on a bunk bed that was 3 tiers high. We were on the 3rd tier. We were naked. We had one blanket that was never washed. It was full of blood and feces. Nobody was taking care of the sick. I cannot tell how long we were on the Riviera. But one day the head came to call me down. And what she told me was that all on the Riviera were going to the gas chamber. She singled me out to save me. She sent me to a barrack of Christians. And my dilemma again, how was I going to look into Mila's eyes? What was I going to tell her? That she was going to die? I was going to live? I had to make an instant decision to leave. I could not face Mila. I never said goodbye. I have never forgiven myself. I vowed that I will remain at the place, at the level that I was then, that I will never grow up. I felt myself turning into stone. They threw me out of the truck, taking her to the gas chamber. It didn't take long for me to come down with typhus. Mengele came around. He had my number written on the list going to the gas chamber. And Bozhenka pushed me to run after Mengele as he was leaving, to ask him for my life. I refused it, but she persisted. And I ended up going after Mengele. And what happened then, you can call it a miracle, or you can call it luck. The Allies, who refused to bomb Auschwitz, even though ex-governor McGovern said he was an ace pilot, that he could have done it easily. I would have welcomed to die by a bomb. It would have meant that my death would be for something, not for nothing. But the Allies refused. But that particular instant, and I was speaking to Mengele, they were circling around Auschwitz in a reconnaissance flight. Dr. Mengele did not know what was happening. He thought Auschwitz was being bombed. And we know that he was deathly afraid of bombs. And as he ran to his car, because he was so afraid, he called to his assistant to remove my number. Bozhenka tells me that it never happened before or after. Who just like to fast forward? I was given an hour, and I believe I'm slow. I'm a little taken away by my speech. It was a month before. You knew you'd never come out of Auschwitz. you knew the only way out of Auschwitz was through the chimney in smoke. But a month before liberation, word came from Berlin to destroy the gas chambers. I fell into a coma due to high fever of typhus again, and was in a coma for a month. I have records from Auschwitz to attest to that. And and when I woke up, it was 2 days before January 18 and the death march from Auschwitz. I was on that death march, burning up with fever. If you slow down, you were shot. Bożenka was walking next to me. She saw the gun being prepared for me to be shot. By that time, I desperately wanted to live. I had survived 5.5 years of the Holocaust, and I wanted to live. I saw the war ending. As Bożenka saw the gun being ready, she quickly grabbed me and carried me, again, risking her life. How did she do it? And when I walked, she helped the people in front of her and in back of her. Bożenka was an incredible angel. I just want to tell you, we finally got to Ravensbrück and slept on the snowy ground. The camp was built for 5,000. It housed 125,000. Eventually, we were transferred to another camp. What's it name? Labor, something like the name escapes me. And we were liberated in May. And by the way, in that next camp, if you did not work, the authorities felt you did not deserve to eat. Bożenka did not eat her rations, which were very meager. She shared it with me. So finally, we were liberated on beginning of May. I found myself alone in the world on that cursed German soil. Who was I going to go to? Where was I going to go? Of my mother's 11 siblings, they and their spouses and their children, and most of them, we were 6 children. Their families were even larger. All of them were murdered. So where was I going to go? My neighbors were murdered. My friends were murdered. Where was I going to go? I just want to tell you that in 2017, the Friends of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, invited me for a mission from Auschwitz to Jerusalem. I was so extremely honored to be invited by the IDF. Before I go back to that, let me tell you, in 1968, my family visited Israel. I did not speak about my experiences for 50 years. I did not know that I could express enough, that there were words to express such barbarity. deliberate barbarity, somebody who set themselves up to determine that we Jews had no right to live, and the world was silent. They knew, and they were silent, and all the doors were closed to us. And anti-Semitism is resurging, not only by the fascists and the far right, also by the left, also on college campuses. In Europe, anti-Semitism is thriving. The academicians and the learned ones are propping it up all the time on the internet. And in the United States, the anti-Semitism is thriving. The United States, the land of the free. Will we ever learn? Will we ever learn that what should we be doing to counter this? And Israel is the only place that is being what do you call it? The word escapes me. It's just too much for me, especially lately. That's the only country in the world that's being demonized. And how grateful should we be to the IDF, to the friends of the IDF, for giving of their young lives, of giving their blood. We are being surrounded, the only democracy in the area who's being demonized the way it is. How grateful should we be to the IDF for protecting us? We don't realize. In my lifetime, it can happen again. You just be aware and be aware of the anti-Semitism that's spreading by leaps and bounds. And I understand that the coronavirus is adding to that anti-Semitism. The Jews are now blamed for the coronavirus. So I want to tell you that for 50 years, I could not speak about my experiences. I could not laugh for 25 years. When I visited Israel in 68, it made me laugh for the first time. And my family was overwhelmed to see me laugh. It made me feel 6 feet tall. And I happen to be very short. I felt like there is no one like the idea. So, can we be grateful enough to them for letting us live, for letting our country where we can run to, will always protect us, for letting the country live, for letting us live wherever we are. Other than that, and after that, of course, I will remember huge amount of things that I didn't tell you. But the main thing is to remember. Please remember, they should not, 6 million, 1.5 million, should not have died for nothing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Hellman, Rabbi of the Young Israel of Brookline. First of all, I'm sure everyone joins me in thanking you, Branya. Thank you so much for sharing with us your story, your incredible story. It is our privilege and our honor to be able to hear it from you. And everything that you just shared with us, everything you described to us, everything that I'm sure all of us learned from your presentation, I'm sure will stay with all of us for a very long time. It was very important for us as a community to have a commemoration tonight on the Hebrew date of Yom HaShoah, notwithstanding any special added challenges due to the current situation. And so I want to thank everyone who made this possible. I want to thank again the sponsoring synagogues, our synagogue, Young Israel of Brookline, the Adam Street Synagogue, Congregation Bethel Ateret Israel, Congregation Kadima Toras Moshe, Congregation Sharei Tefillah, Maimonides Kehila, the Sephardic Congregation of Newton, and Young Israel of Sharon. We want to thank Combined Jewish Philanthropies of Boston for their added support and assistance tonight. And a very special thank you to Tova Katz, who was the driving force behind this program tonight, and it would not have taken place without her. So thank you very much, Tova. We will close in just a minute or two with the singing, the recitation of Kel Maleh, the traditional memorial prayer, as well as the singing of Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem. We first wish to honor the memory of all those who perished in the Shoah with the traditional memorial Kel Maleh prayer. Each of these individuals, each soul is not forgotten, is remembered. They are remembered by their families, by their loved ones who knew them, their descendants who have been told of them, those who know their names, their faces, and details of their lives. Collectively, that generation, all those who perished, are remembered by us. Collectively, the Jewish people, we, the current generation, remember that generation who suffered and sacrificed for us. And each of the righteous souls that were killed by the Nazis is remembered for eternity in heaven above. And so at this moment, I ask everyone who is watching, if you are able, to stand in honor of their memory as we recite the Kel Maleh prayer. You can stand and listen silently or join together quietly with me. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachas Kanfei HaShechina, Bima'alos Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mi'irim Umazhirim, Es Nishmos Achenu V'Achliosenu B'nei Yisrael HaKedoshim V'Hatehorim Shenaflu B'yedei Harotzchim V'nishbach damam b'chol machanos hashmad be'Europa shenehergu v'nisrifu v'nishchatu v'nikberu chayim B'chol misos mishunos v'achzarios al kedushas Hashem bavor shanachnu b'neihem uv'noseihem mispalim ba'ad haskaras nishmoseihem lachein bal harachamim Yastireim b'seiser k'nafav liolamim v'yitzror b'tzror hachayim es nishmasam Adonai hu nachalasam Bigan Eden tehei menuchasam v'yanuchu b'shalom v'nomar Amen. Tonight, we do not only, though, remember what was lost, what was taken from us, the lives that were ended prematurely. We also honor everything that that generation, both the survivors and those who perished, people like Branya and her entire family, all that they have bequeathed to us as part of our identity as Jews, that is now part of our national heritage. We also honor their strength, their courage, determination, faith, all things that we heard described tonight by Branya. We are here because of them. We stand on their shoulders. We live by their merit. And so to honor them, to honor their greatness, we'll now sing HaTikva, the Israeli national anthem. And for this, wherever you are listening, watching, I invite you to join me in the singing of HaTikva. Kol belevav pnima, nefesh Yehudi homiya, ulefatei mizrach kadima, ayin litzion Sophia. Olo avda tikvateinu, ha-tikva bat shnot alpayim, liyotam chofshi be'artzeinu, B'eretz Tziyam Yerushalayim, liyotam chofshi be'artzeinu, B'eretz Tzion Yerushalayim. This concludes our program. We thank all of you for watching and participating. We wish everyone to stay safe and stay well, and everyone should have a good night. Good night.